If you're looking to start vlogging, all you really need is a smartphone and a few extras. In this video, I'm going to guide you through the basic steps to creating engaging content with just a smartphone gimbal, and a microphone. I'm going to be using the DJI OM 4, but you could basically use any gimbal. They all pretty much work the same. The Osmo Mobile 3 is almost identical and uses the same Mimo app. The app works exactly the same whether you use the OM4 or the Osmo Mobile 3. So I've timestamped everything. If you need to skip ahead or skip to certain sections, feel free to do so. And let's do it.
If you're doing this to grow your following, then you will need to choose a niche, or niche as some people pronounce it. The days of people videoing nothing but the mundane events of their daily lives and becoming successful are mostly behind us. If you're already a celebrity, then it might work. But for most of us, we probably need a niche. A niche is a subject for your vlog. For example, beauty, fitness, tech, movie reviews, politics, travel, economics, history, and so on. There are thousands of possible subjects for you to choose from. Now, one major tip is to stay focused on that subject. The people who follow you probably do so because you have some knowledge they want to know more about. Now, this also makes a big difference to how effective a platform's algorithms are at bringing you new viewers. For example, if you publish a video on beauty, the algorithm registers your channel as being about beauty and will show people looking for beauty tips in your direction. If you then make another video about gardening tips, the algorithm gets confused and your channel won't grow as quickly. As well, all the people who followed you for beauty tips are much less likely to watch your video about gardening. So the algorithm sees that not many of your subscribers are watching that gardening video, and then it comes to the conclusion it's not worth showing to anyone else. For this reason, when you choose your niche, make sure it's something you love talking about. Make sure this is something you want to make content about in the long term. And the more obsessed you are with your subject, the better. Because your infectious energy will come across to your audience and keep them coming back for more videos. To be a vlogger, all you need is 3 things.
You know, it's true, you could just hold the phone in your hand like this and use the inbuilt mic.
But you will do better with some kind of stabilization, like a tripod.
So in this case, I'm just using the OM4 as a tripod. Comes with a little mini tripod that you can put on the bottom, and so you can just stick it on a table and you can use it as a gimbal or as a tripod. The only other thing you need is a microphone. Just a $10 or $20 clip-on mic. It really makes all the difference.
There's shotgun microphone options too. So when you're capturing video, there's 2 basic types of footage you need to shoot for your vlog: talking to camera footage and B-roll footage.
So talking to camera footage can be filmed walking around outside,
or sitting or standing somewhere. This will depend on the type of vlog you're making. Travel vlogs obviously lend themselves to walking and talking. Tech reviews are more likely to be studio-based, sitting down. Personally, I tend to record talking to camera footage at 1080p, known as FHD or full high definition, and at 24 frames per second. But when I shoot B-roll, I either shoot 1080p 24 frames per second or 4K and 60 frames per second. So why do I choose those settings? Well, talking clips tend to be much longer, so shooting at 4K would use up much more memory on my phone. Plus, people are just watching you talk, so do they really need incredible quality? I pretty much always master my videos at 1080p anyway. There's really 2 categories of B-roll. One is showing how to do something, and the other is cinematic, sort of high-quality visuals. If I'm showing how to use a piece of kit, I don't usually need 4K footage. Again, I just shoot at 1080p. For the more cinematic B-roll, I shoot 4K, and usually at 60 frames per second. A high frame rate allows me to slow shots down when I edit, to create slow motion. 4K means I can reframe the shot if I need to. Plus, if the shot isn't 100% smooth, stabilizing software generally works better with 4K footage. But if you find shooting 4K takes up too much memory and processing power, just shoot 1080p, it's fine. The DJI OM4 and the OM3 or even the Osmo Pocket is packed with features to use for vlogging. The story mode, gesture control, active tracking, AI editing, time-lapse, hyperlapse, and more. I'm not saying you should use all of those features for every video, but these features can help you keep your vlogs engaging. The advantage of story mode is speed. On the downside, the resolution you can output from story mode is usually limited. I have both iPhone 12 Pro Max and Samsung Note 20 Ultra. They work a bit differently with the Mimo app, which has slightly more features on iOS than Android. Using my iPhone without extra apps, there's no manual mode, so I can't set shutter speed and ISO and that kind of thing. Personally, I rarely use the manual controls when shooting this kind of stuff anyway. Smartphones have all kinds of software working to create the best looking images, and when you use manual control, this can actually negate them. I know a lot of advice is to lock exposure, but personally I don't always do that. If a shot is going from dark to light and looks horrible, then I will lock it. Well, I'm only talking about vlogging now. If I was making a short film, I would use manual controls. That said, as dynamic tone mapping is becoming more of a dominant feature in smartphones, especially iPhones, I tend to just try to work with it rather than to fight against it. In recent years, dynamic tone mapping, or remapping, has become more important to the look of smartphone shot video, especially if you have a recent iPhone, I'd say from iPhone 7 or 8 onwards. I think it's important to understand how it works if you want to get the best video out of your smartphone. Now, Android devices also use this, but it's not quite as aggressive. What it does is try to even out the exposure in different parts of the frame. In a normal camera, exposure is even across the frame, but with dynamic tone remapping, the software picks out an area, say an overexposed area, and adjusts the ISO just for that area of the image. I'll show you what I mean on my iPhone 12 Pro Max. You can see as I move the camera, the software starts to adjust this blown out part of the image. It's like magic really, the way it does this. If the exposure level was even across the frame, that area would remain blown out. With tone mapping, it adjusts that area of the frame. It draws a mask around the overblown part and pulls down the ISO just for that part. Now, this is how smartphones achieve a better dynamic range than would be possible with such small sensors. You can go out and shoot video for your vlogs without worrying about exposure settings as much as if you had a regular camera. The sky will be less likely to be blown out, for example. The reason Apple and other companies are putting this software into our smartphones is so we can shoot better video quicker. The software is doing the work for us. This is why many people who like using manual controls have a problem with iPhone now. With my Samsung, the device lets you disable it when you lock exposure, but iPhones don't. They force you to use tone mapping. Now, there are times when this mapping really fails, like when you get flickering skies, but we have to accept that, and in return, we get to shoot great video faster. But I really do hope they're working on fixing this issue. The DJI Mimo app has quite a few different modes, so which one should we choose for vlogging and why? For walking and talking shots, it's probably best to use tilt locked. You want the camera to stay pretty fixed while you're walking. You don't want it moving up and down on the tilt axis. For regular B-roll shots, you might want to use follow mode. Now the gimbal follows your movements, so if you want to tilt up to look at something, you can, and the gimbal will keep the movement smooth. For more wild B-roll shots, you can explore the other modes. For example, the FPV mode, first person view, allows you to fly your camera around like a fighter jet. This might suit some fast cuts with up-tempo music. I personally don't use live focus, but it's an option if you want that bokeh style blurry background, especially if you're talking to camera or filming a human subject and the camera is pretty still. Once you or the camera are moving around, this live focus effect doesn't work quite as well.
When I'm talking to camera, I usually have the smartphone on a tripod, but you could use the DJI OM4 with the little mini tripod or the OM3. So when I'm just standing and talking to camera, I use a little clip-on microphone but wired. And I also use my Samsung Note 20 Ultra. I think it looks slightly better to me. I think it also has a slightly shallower depth of field, so the background is a little bit more blurry. So I use the main camera. I don't use the selfie camera because the main camera is better quality and I just look straight into the camera. So one tip is just to try to imagine that the camera is your friend and you're just chatting away and it's kind of relaxed and you come across much more friendly in your vlog. So how do I do this if I can't see myself? Well, I usually set the camera to about 1080p, 24 frames per second. I get the angle right, so it's just straight on. Usually, you just want it as simple as possible, I think, for these kind of talking to camera stuff. I usually switch it to pro mode on the Samsung, but actually usually just leave it in auto. The thing is that I do have the option to fix exposure and focus if I need to. If the focus keeps going wrong, then I can just come around and fix it. It's very quick. So now I just start recording and then I run around and start talking to camera. You see the Samsung Note 20 Ultra has face detection, autofocus. So it should, as soon as it sees my face, go into focus. The only thing you have to be careful of, if there's faces in the background, that it might read that as the face and focus on that face instead. So another tip is to make sure you have an interesting background, and preferably something that is connected to your chosen subject. So I mean, this is my parents' living room. It's not exactly perfect for smartphone filmmaking, but at least it's quite interesting. Preferably I would have something that is more connected to filmmaking, maybe like more of a studio. I just don't have that opportunity at the moment. At least it's fairly interesting, even if it isn't exactly perfect for my theme. Yeah, so don't get hung up on having a studio space or having the perfect place to do your vlogging. Just go with whatever you have access to, and also with a space that enables you to do this regularly, because if you find yourself having to organize a space, it's just going to slow you down, because with vlogging you just need to be able to do things quickly. I'd also say don't record in front of a blank wall, because it's just a bit boring. So what do you think my next tip is? That's right, don't stand too close to your background. It just doesn't look good, and it's sort of cramped and distracting for the viewers. Also, it will help you to get a blurrier background if there's more distance. So basically, to get a blurry background with your smartphone, all you have to do is stand quite close to the smartphone and then have your background at a good distance, and then it should be slightly out of focus. So my next tip is make sure to frame yourself well. So basically you want yourself either in the middle. Also use the rule of thirds. So if you put your grid on, and you'll see there's two vertical lines. So if you're positioned on either of those vertical lines, that also works as a composition. So sort of maybe here, talking to camera, maybe here, talking to camera, but most of the time, just in the middle. After the first try, I just go around and check to see what I've got, maybe adjust the camera angle to get it right, check that I've performed it okay and I haven't stuttered. So then I run around and have another go. If you want to be moving and talking at the same time, you could try using the DJI OM4. So you just use the gesture control with tracking, and it should follow you wherever you go. When you want to stop it recording, you just hold up your hand and that should work. No. Someone said that a vlog is like the behind the scenes footage from a movie. I just can't remember. I mean, you can make your blog however you want, and certainly you should go with whatever works for you. But that said, many vlogs do have a kind of diary-like element to them. Oh, every time I'm engaging, people love to get a glimpse. Remember that the key to success as a vlogger is to engage your audience. And you know, people love to get a glimpse of who you are, including the ups and downs. Things that go right, things that go wrong, it's all part of the story. I think the one mistake people can make is that they think they need to look professional, and if you do it, the one downside of being too professional is that it can be a bit cold or unemotional. Honestly, your audience will rather see the real you, or at least as much of the real you as you're willing to show them. I know what you're thinking. It's very easy to say be natural, but in practice, is it actually that easy? Well, anyway, here's a few tips to help you relax and be more natural in front of camera. When I first started doing this, I was really uncomfortable recording myself. Firstly, I found that I couldn't talk to camera without umming and erring and forgetting what I was saying and losing my place, and somehow I couldn't collect all the things in a coherent way that I'm supposed to say. Just a bit like what I just did, not entirely sort of fluent and clear. So if I just spoke to you normally and without a kind of script or an idea in my head what I was going to say, probably I would get lost, especially when I'm talking about equipment. So I have nothing but admiration for people that can they seem to be able to just talk to camera, and they have this very precise, clear way of talking. So of course, there are those who read from a script. So if you struggle like me, trying to keep everything in your head at the same time while you're trying to talk naturally to the camera, you could think about using an auto cue. Well, the downside of an auto cue is that it can come across as a little bit unnatural if you're reading. It depends how good you are at reading and sounding like, it's natural and spontaneous. Yeah, another trick that YouTubers use when they're talking to camera is to use this editing style where they're just cutting all the little bits out, all the mistakes, and the when you get it wrong and looking wrong, and even cutting out all the breaths. So that's quite a established style of editing now on YouTube. And if you've watched many YouTube videos, you will probably be very familiar with that style. The more you talk to camera, the better you'll get at it. So just keep going. But what happens to me is that as soon as I hit that record button, I suddenly feel under pressure, and that makes me probably be a bit too serious and a bit stiff maybe. One little trick I have is just to make myself laugh and then start talking. So I just go and then I start saying whatever it is I have to say. You see, immediately you kind of relax a bit, you're smiling, and all that is going to help. Yeah, laughing relaxes you, smiling is going to make you more appealing to your audience, and of course you can just cut out the laugh later. If anybody's watching you, you do look a bit crazy. Another thing you can do is just keep going, do takes and do another take, just keep doing takes, keep going, don't lose heart, don't give up. Eventually you will get better at it and you'll start to relax just from doing it, doing it. So just be patient. And another thing to remember is that the mistakes you make you more human. Sometimes leave in a few mistakes because your audience will then empathize with you more. They see that you're just human, just like them, and it kind of makes us feel more connected to the person.
If this is the first time you've shot video in a more serious way, here's some basic beginner tips. We use our smartphones for everyday life, and when we're holding them, dust and grease from our hands goes onto the lens. And then we get a foggy looking image, but a quick wipe will make sure the lens is clear. Video takes up quite a lot of space on your phone's memory, so make sure there's enough space there. When I start a new project, the first thing I do is delete all the files from the previous video from my phone. Make sure your gimbal, smartphone, and any other battery-powered kit are fully charged before you head out. Nothing is worse than just when you're getting some good footage, you need to stop to recharge. People filming their family or their vacation often shoot video with a roving camera. They just start recording, then move the camera around trying to film everything. What you end up with is often quite messy and a bit horrible to edit. To shoot more cinematic footage, it helps to plan each shot. Focus your mind and create shots with more purpose. Think of each shot as a mini story itself, with a beginning, middle and end. Ask yourself these 3 questions. Where does the shot start? Where does it move to? And what is the point of the shot? Another beginner thing to do is to shoot everything from your eye level. Again, when we film our family or our vacation, we tend to shoot everything with the camera here. Then when you edit, every shot has a kind of similar feel to it. The thing is, it's actually easier to edit together shots from contrasting angles, and your final video will look smoother and more cinematic. To add more value to your shots, think about getting low shots or high shots. Use foreground to add depth. Use movement within the frame combined with the movement of the camera. You're only limited by your creativity. Photographers or videographers are constantly looking for opportunities. Use color, use reflections, use architecture, use light. The more you explore your visual ideas, the more engaging your vlogs will be. It used to be the rule that to shoot pro video, you absolutely had to shoot landscape. But that is now the past and no longer really relevant. Rather, it's more about shooting the right orientation for your intended format. Every vlogging platform, including YouTube, now has video content to be viewed on smartphones held vertically. The new thing on YouTube right now is called YouTube Shorts, and they have to be uploaded in a vertical format. And this all happened because it's easier to hold your phone this way in one hand. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Snapchat, these are all powerful vlogging platforms with huge potential audiences. For creating stories you will want to shoot vertically. Probably. That said, you can also use landscape video and crop it. For example, if you shoot 4K video in landscape, you can use that for landscape and portrait videos without losing quality. So perhaps shooting everything 4K in landscape will give you more flexibility. Certainly, being spontaneous works well for vlogging, but I recommend that you have some idea of what you're trying to achieve. If you have a plan, maybe a shot list or an outline of a structure for the video, that will be your foundation. If you don't plan, you might become more preoccupied with worries about what you should be doing. So here's the thing, planning enables you to be more spontaneous when you're actually filming. Use your chosen subject to inform this plan. Watch other vloggers in your niche and see how they do things. Just get inspiration, don't copy outright. You've got to add your own unique way of doing things. If you do that, your vlogs will stand out and people will be more likely to come back for more. In a previous video, I talked about how using a hook can grab viewers and keep them watching longer. A story hook is something that's a bit unusual and might get people curious. We want to know what happens. People have been putting hooks in their stories since we started telling stories, thousands of years ago. And you don't need to base jump off the Empire State Building. Anything which hooks people who are interested in your subject will do. For example, one of my recent videos was my opinion regarding smartphone camera versus pro camera. As this is currently quite a heated topic, people are curious to hear the arguments. So in this case, the topic of the video itself is a kind of hook. If you don't have a hook before filming, you might discover one during filming. Something funny or unexpected might happen. And this is something that might hook people into watching. So when you come to edit, think about using that moment as a hook. Tease it at the start, but don't give it all away. Make sure people have to watch to find out what happened. There are apps which allow you to edit directly on your phone. For iOS, one of the standout apps is LumaFusion. I've actually edited several of my YouTube videos using this app. That said, I did use an iPad for the extra screen space. There's also iMovie, which is very simple and quick to use, albeit without too many features. For Android, there are apps such as KineMaster or KineMaster and Power Director. An app I really like is called VN or Vlog Now, and it's free and available for iOS and Android. There's also an app called CapCut, which is a hit with TikTokers. So you can get started editing on your phone with a free app. Long term, you will probably want to edit on a laptop or desktop computer. Record yourself talking to camera in one long take. Don't worry too much about mistakes. You can cut them out, or leave them in if they're funny. Now drop the whole take onto your timeline. Go through cutting out all the bad bits. Many successful YouTubers are really ruthless cutting out breaths and ums and ahs, and this makes the whole thing very fast-paced. Some people not only cut out breaths, they also overlap the beginnings and ends of sentences to speed things up even further. This aggressive cutting is what makes vlogs different to regular TV production, but it really depends on your style and subject. For example, there's a YouTuber I follow whose videos are all about living on a canal boat, and it's all about a slower way of life. So in his niche, a more traditional style of editing is probably going to be more appropriate. Once you have your talking footage cut, you can add B-roll. B-roll is usually used either to illustrate what you're saying or in a montage on its own with music. Let's say I'm talking about a lens for a smartphone and how to mount it. Well, that's a good time to include a close-up of myself doing just that. And meanwhile, my voice continues and I try to time each shot to match the words. When I'm editing a montage, I find the music first and then edit to that music. I get a lot of my music from YouTube's library, where musicians have offered their music to be used by YouTubers for free. Although I recently noticed there has been actually no new tracks since December 2020. I don't know if this is a change by YouTube. Maybe they're phasing this out. Well, we'll have to see. You're going to have to spend some time searching the YouTube library because the quality of the music does vary a lot, but as it's free, we can't really complain. Other tracks I've purchased are from Premium Beat, so if I think I will use a track a lot, then it seems more worthwhile to just buy the track outright. I know some people use music subscription services. That way you get access to a library of tracks that you know will be good quality, but that will depend on your budget. Certainly there's enough good music in the YouTube library to get you started. If you're editing using LumaFusion, you get access to a few free music tracks via the integrated story blocks. Now, considering the cost of LumaFusion is only $30, it's almost worth buying it just to get the free music. By comparison, one track of music from Premium Beat costs about $50. I counted 30 free music tracks in LumaFusion. And so what's that? 30 times 50 equals $1,500 worth of music if you were to pay Premium Beat rates. So that's a pretty good deal. If you want access to all Storyblocks tracks and stock footage, then there's a subscription fee option. So once I've chosen my music track for the montage, I place it on the timeline. Now I go through my B-roll clips, which are usually 60 frames per second. Next, I scrub through each clip to find the best bit of that clip. Drag the clip onto the 24 frames per second timeline and slow it down to 40%. I usually time each clip to the beat of the music, trimming and stretching clips to fit. One trick is to create a clip the correct length, and then use that as a measure. Place the clip above the first clip, make it the exact same size, then place it after, and now it should fit the rhythm of the music. Then it's just a matter of playing around with the clips to create something cinematic. For next level montage sequences, choose clips to coincide with the feel of the music. For example, when the music lifts, choose a video to lift with it. In music terms, this is called a crescendo. The Mimo app has a few features that let you edit your footage right in the phone. We already talked about story mode, which edits a little sequence while you're shooting. It might take me a few hours to shoot footage, compile it, work on it, find music and so on. So more than anything, story mode can be a real time saver. The Mimo app also has a regular editing app. Select clips and Mimo then imports them into the editor. There's quite a few options. Trim clips, swap them round, change the speed, add music from a free library, add filters, add text. A few transition options too. Instagram style stickers, adjust the speed of the clip, and more. This is pretty similar to editing apps like VN or CapCut. You can also change the frame to vertical for an Instagram story or Facebook story. Now, there's a third editing option with the app, which is the AI editor. This one is like story mode, except it allows you to use an editing template to create a sequence from clips you've already shot. There are limitations to these apps. One is that you can't export your final video in 4K. You're limited to 1080p or 720p. Of course, there's many fewer editing features compared to software such as Adobe Premiere, Final Cut Pro, or even LumaFusion. Personally, I don't spend hours and hours grading each video. However, there might be times when a little touch-up here and there will improve the look. Again, the subject of your vlog will determine how cinematic your video needs to be. So here's some grading tips for getting the most from your smartphone video. The first thing to remember is that smartphone video is designed to look great straight from the phone. Of course, you can always use preset filters when filming, like the ones you get in the Mimo app. They can do a job and save you time. Smartphones tend to add a lot of contrast and sharpness, so I like to reduce the contrast, brighten the shadows a little, and darken the highlights a touch as well. This makes the video look softer and a bit easier on the eye. Remember earlier I said to lean towards capturing darker rather than lighter video? This is where it pays off. For example, this is a shot of a gimbal I have from an earlier video. It's shot on a Samsung S9. At first it looks like it's too dark, like the shadows are black. And you might think this is not great for a product review where you want to show the product to your viewers. However, what I can do is reduce the contrast and ta-da! Doesn't look so bad now. As well, if I brighten the shadows, again, more detail is revealed. But you can use this technique for other kinds of video. What it does is reduced contrast, which will make your video look more like film. One thing I've noticed some people do when grading smartphone footage is to crush the blacks even darker. And personally, I don't think that's a good look. And that's what makes smartphone video look less professional than footage from a regular camera. Like I say, I just make small adjustments, and unless you're a skilled colorist, I recommend you do the same. The color of a video changes the mood of the video. One of the simplest ways to change the look of a clip is to use a tint. In fact, digital cameras are using a tint all the time. If you've ever set white balance in a camera app or editing software, you will have seen a tint control. Adding a tint is a bit like placing a colored filter over your camera lens. It basically adds a touch of color to the whole frame, like a layer. A simple rule is that orange and red create a warm feel, while blue and green are cooler. Just add a touch. If you add too much, it just looks a bit weird. The general rule of all filmmaking is that if anything becomes distracting, then it's too much. If people looking at your video are thinking, wow, that's very orange, then you're not really doing it right. If you're looking to build a following by vlogging, quality is really important. And as more people turn to vlogging, the competition grows. This means we all have to up our game. I think with vlogging and social media, we can feel a pressure to produce tons of videos. When I publish a video, the views jump up briefly, followed by a gradual slide downwards again. And it's that slide which can make us feel like, oh my God, I've got to make another video quickly. Problem is, if you start to sacrifice the quality of your content to produce videos faster, your followers might stop watching your content. Remember, it's all about holding the viewer's attention for as long as possible. Another important element to being a successful vlogger is consistency. For example, posting regular content. Find the right pace for producing videos and stick to it, like one per week or one per month. It's up to you. But this is better than releasing 7 videos in a week and then nothing for 2 months. Be consistent with the subject of your content as well. There are 2 basic reasons why people will watch your vlog. 1, to learn something about the subject, and 2, because they like you and your style. Try to be consistent with the way you present your vlog. For example, on YouTube, thumbnails are one of the key factors to getting views. If the thumbnail promises what someone is looking for, they're more likely to click it. But having a consistent thumbnail style as well means if someone watches one video and likes it, they will more easily spot your other videos just from the thumbnail. Why do so many vloggers place themselves prominently in their thumbnails? Well, simply because it's easier for their subscribers to find their other videos. So here's the most important thing for vlogging success. Start now and don't give up. Is that a thing? Or things? Anyway, some vloggers start and for some reason they're immediately successful. Others work away for months before things start to take off. My advice is just get started. Don't worry about getting things wrong or that your videos aren't perfect. Viewers are generally happy to come along with you for the ride. Most likely they will enjoy the fact you're learning as you go because they can learn along with you. Being a successful vlogger is all about bringing your followers and subscribers along with you for the journey. So don't be afraid to invite people into your learning process. Most people actually like the fact you're working things out as you go, as it makes your vlog more authentic. Plus, they can learn along with you. So that's it for this video. I hope you found it useful. Just a big thank you to all our members on Patreon. On the Silent Eye Patreon, you can find podcasts, all the Silent Eye episodes, behind the scenes stuff. I'm adding new teaching materials all the time. So if that's something that's of interest to you, I would love it if you became a member and I would chat to you there.